kicking up their heels. But today in Music City, the all-stars of the Redman TNT All-American Pulling Series will be kicking up their wheels. Coming up next, two-wheel drive action from the Nashville Motor Raceway. This is Trucks and Tractor Power, featuring the all-stars of the Redman TNT All-American Pulling Series. Tonight, it's super modified two-wheel drive trucks and funny cars here at the Nashville Motor Raceway in Nashville, Tennessee. Hi, everyone. I'm Stan Rhodes, and thanks for joining us here on Trucks and Tractor Power here on the Nashville Network. And, of course, joining me once again, former Bigfoot driver Rich Hooser. Rich, when we talk about the two-wheel drive division, it seems as if it's a case of old blood versus new.
That's right, Stan. And a couple good veterans you'll see tonight. Wayne Ross, your 88 Puller of the Year, and Mike Stowe, your defending points champion with Bad Dog. Of course, these guys are being challenged by a couple good up-and-comers. You got John Potts. He's running a 650 cubic inch all-aluminum Aries. And the unique driving style of Kenny Lamont, which we'll be taking a look at a little bit later on. But, Stan, this class is so competitive, it could be anybody's pull.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on it. Right now, we're going to go down trackside and check in with TNT Motorsports' Mike Goss. Mike?
Super modified two-wheel drive trucks are among the trickiest vehicles to drive in pulling. One of the pullers told me that it's like sitting in your passenger car at a stop sign on an icy road, and you're trying to pull slowly away and get some traction. It's very slick on the starting line with these vehicles. You'll see these guys ease out on the throttle until they feel the rear wheels hooked to the track, and then it's throttle down, wheels up action.
Thanks very much, Mike. So for the super modified two-wheel drive trucks and funny cars, it will be 300 feet to go the full distance. Ron Hickson, the sled operator, and measuring the distance, Steve Raby. First coming up is Billy Johns and Willie Make It, the farmer out of Adairsville, Kentucky.
And, of course, Stan, this is the first puller now. The first puller has the choice of either taking this pull or dropping back down to third or even last place. And then again, if the track officials or the sled official thinks that the sled is not weighted right, they'll bring him back again. So let's see what will happen here on this first run. He's coming out a little bit easy, then he gets on the throttle about there. He's coming across the front end just a little bit up the air. He's doing rookie. Okay, right there as you see, he's off to the right-hand side. He had to let off. That's going to hurt him, Stan.
He was doing a lot of bouncing. And the distance, 247.53 feet, not very far down the track.
And one thing he has to do here, Stan, he has to decide right there before he moves if he's going to take that run, and I believe he's going to.
All right, coming up next, it's going to be the Irish challenger, Dan Walsh out of Linden Station, Wisconsin.
Of course, he also runs a tractor. He's got a 4-engine tractor. This guy's got a lot of experience at pulling. He's been doing it for quite a while. Let's see how good he can do. See if he can come out and see if he can beat that. Now, he's a second puller, so he's going to have to take this run. There's no doubt about it. And you don't get to watch a whole lot of guys run, and he's doing real good so far. A little bit heavy on the front end. He can't get that front end up. It might hurt him a little bit. I don't think he's going to get the distance.
Well, he did go a little bit further. Let's find out how far indeed he did go. Yes, 269.15 feet, so he's best the difference there by about 20 feet, Rich.
Yeah, well, Stan, it didn't really look that good. Looks like he didn't have quite enough tire speed on there coming down the track here at the beginning.
You've taken over the lead. Looked like you might have been a little heavy on the nose.
Yeah, I was a little heavy. I screwed up. The track ain't quite as good as I thought it was. I was even the wrong damn gear, so yeah, I just goofed up. It might hold up, but I doubt it.
Well, next up, it's the panel van. Bad to the bone, a 1939 Dodge, the Budweiser Excalibur King, driven by John Potts out of Green Bay, Wisconsin.
And one thing about this truck, it's a 1939 Dodge, like you said, but this is made out of all fiberglass. And underneath this fiberglass is 650 cubic inches of Aries horsepower, 1,800 horsepower to be exact. Now, he doesn't come off the line real hard. He's taking it nice and easy, going through right straight down the middle of the track. Looks like a good run. He's a little bit light on the front end right there. Getting off to the right-hand side, but an excellent run, Stan.
Looks like he's pretty close to Dan Walsh's mark at 269.15 feet. We'll find out. Oh, he's very close. 269.8 feet for the Budweiser Excalibur King. So just a little bit behind that leader. Let's go down to Mike Goss.
John, I've been told you were 7/100ths of a foot behind the leader. If you had to do it over again, what would you do?
I think I'd move a little bit more weight to the rear end and maybe take off a little harder. Motor wasn't running up right the way I wanted it. A few things happening wrong.
Well, so is Ron Hickson. Readies his sled. The decision maker, Ken Lamont, powers up the Midnight Express for his pool in just a moment. Welcome back to the Nashville Motor Raceway. And there you see Ken Lamont pulling the Midnight Express into place. It's a bright new star who has developed a few of his own innovations, as Rich Hooser explains.
When truck and tractor pulling first started, there wasn't a whole lot to do. Hook onto the sled and mash the gas. Well, things have come a long way. Right now I'm sitting behind a wheel of Ken Lamont's Midnight Express. It's a two-wheel drive class. Now you get pretty busy behind this wheel. First thing, your left hand is always on the wheel. Now your right hand is going to be busy over here. Is the throttle. It's a hand throttle, and on this hand throttle, one of Ken's innovations, is two switches. Now these switches are going to be engaged in this position when he takes off from the sled. The first switch, which engages the clutch. Now what this does is it enables the clutch to slip, so he's not getting too much traction coming off the line. Now once he gets going, he'll flip that switch, and he'll lock in that clutch to get nothing but full power from the engine to the rear wheels. Now this other switch is for the rear axle. Now what he has to do here, when he takes off from the line, he wants both rear axles to be locked in the same to get the same amount of horsepower at both sides. Now when he starts going down the track and starts to go over to one side a little bit, he might be going out of bounds. So what he has to do, since his front end is up in the air, is he's going to have to operate his brakes to get the vehicle to move over to the right-hand side or the left-hand side. Now what he'll do is when he flips this switch, it disengages the rear axle, so the tires will be independent on the power. Ken also has to pay attention to two gauges on his dashboard, his RPMs and his engine oil pressure. Now if he loses any oil pressure or he gives a little bit too much RPM, he could lose his engine. Well, Stan, Kenny Lamont does have some neat ideas on this truck. And let's see if these ideas are going to work for him. Now, these switches and stuff like we talked about, this is one thing that helps him get off the line and keep straight going down the track. Now, let's see if he can do it. 269 is the distance to beat. And if anybody's going to do it, I think Kenny can. He comes off the line a little easy there. Of course, he's got the rear end locked in place. He's got both powers going to both sides of the wheels. He's a little bit light on the front end, starting to bounce just a little bit. But he looks good right there. It's just coming up a little too high. It's hard to say, Stan. Excellent run, though.
Yeah, good run for Kenny Lamont. Puts him in third place with 265.86 feet. Coming up, the defending champion, Bad Dog, driven by Mike Stowe.
A little short of first place. If you had a second chance, what would you do different?
Well, I'd put a little more gear in it. The tire speed wasn't quite enough for this kind of track. You know, it's the first pull of the season. Ronnie's changed his boat on his sled. The sled, the contact point on the ground isn't like we've ever run before, and it's coming off the line a lot easier. So we can run a little more tire speed. But first one of the year, we're just experimenting. We'll be all right.
And here's a guy that's experimenting a little bit, Rich. He's the defending points champion in a brand new truck, Mike Stowe in Bad Dog out of Warrenton, Georgia.
And of course, with this new truck this year, he's the defending national champion with his old truck. Let's see if he did this truck right. It's a new frame and it's a new body, 575 cubic inches. Well injected on alcohol. He's got the horsepower, but let's see if he's got that leverage right to pull that sled. He looks a little heavy on the front end. He's got it wide open, though, Stan. It doesn't look real good. He's coming off to the side a little bit, and then he gets the front end up right there, but it's a little too late.
I think it might be a little bit short of what the lead distance is. Yes, 256.17 feet, not good enough.
And we can see right off the line here, it didn't come off real strong, but he is at full throttle there, about 75 feet. He started to get the momentum up, but he just didn't have it.
All right, let's go down to trackside with Mike Goss, and he's got Mike Stowe.
Mike, first run with your new vehicle here. What do you think?
Well, it lacked a little to be desired. It wasn't too bad. I think I got my weight pretty close. There's a lot of people that really give me a lot of help on this. Paint and body shop there at home, guys, I can't say enough. Thank you, Tony Osteen and I have worked like dogs. We got more sleep last night than we've had in 5 days, but all in all, I'm real satisfied. When we get through with it, it's going to look real good. And I see the frame's not gone, so it's still going to be pretty competitive. It'll be okay.
Mike, you feel any pressure being the defending points champion?
Sure you do. Everybody's here. Everybody's after you. Everybody's gunning for you. Everybody's hoping and praying I made a mistake by changing the truck, but I think we're okay.
Now, here's a guy that's going to be doing a little bit of gunning, one of the most beautiful two-wheelers in the sport, Art Hathaway in Honk and Donkey out of Washington, Pennsylvania. He's got it best, 269.15 feet.
Well, he's got a good chance to do it. He's got 1,700 horsepower in this 88 Ford pickup, 588 cubic inches of Aries horsepower. He comes off the line real hard, Stan. This is going to be an excellent run. He's carrying that front end just right. He's got his weight worked out for this run.
Oh, this is close, Rich. This is very close. He could be very close to taking over that lead. We'll find it, and he does, not by much, 269.79 feet. honkin' donkey Art Hathaway.
And he did it right from the beginning. As you can see, he came out real hard. His front end's just bouncing a little bit. That means he's got his weight right. And as soon as it comes off the ground, he's got a perfect run.
Well, I think Mike Goss has got Art Hathaway down at trackside.
Art, you've taken the lead by just fractions of a foot. You think you can hang on to it?
Well, I doubt that stands up, but we're satisfied to be right there after what's pulled.
Well, next it's going to be the Professor Wayne Roush out of Dublin, Ohio, in his 1923 yellow Model T. And that's a beautiful looking truck there, Rich.
And of course it is. It's a 526 cubic inch Chrysler Hemi, blown injected on alcohol, 1,400 horsepower. Now this guy does a lot of experimenting with this truck. He's done some good things. He's done some bad things. I've seen it break in half one time, but it looks like he's doing pretty good right now. A little bit light on the front end. It's going to hurt him right there, Stan.
Well, he had to go better than 269.79 feet. Let's find out how far the Professor went down the track. And he's still not quite there. 261 even in the yellow Model T.
Well, Stan, he started off real good at the beginning there. As you can see, he's coming across the track nice and easy. But right there towards the end, the front end gets up in the air a little bit too high.
Well, let's go down trackside with Mike Goss.
Wayne about 8 feet behind. It was a decent run, don't you think?
Yes, we've got a brand new motor in the truck, and I was a little bit hesitant with it, and I didn't launch it real well, so I'll settle for that.
We'll continue with more of Trucks and Tractor Power on the Nashville Network right after this. And welcome back. Stan Rhodes and Rich Hooser here in Nashville, and there you see the current standings. First place, Art Hathaway with 269.79 feet, the distance to beat. And there you see the Professor Wayne Roush. He's making an adjustment for his run in the little red truck. He'll be doing so in just a couple of moments. But the big secret in the game of pulling is weight distribution. Rich Hooser has the story.
Weight distribution in a two-wheel drive class is very critical. The main objective is to get as much weight to the rear tires for the most traction as possible. Now, track conditions will dictate on where to put those weights. You can have a lot of them hanging off the front end. You can move some of them back right behind the engine. Now, if you get a little bit more, you can come on back, a little in front of the rear tires to get a little bit more weight back here. And then, of course, back behind the rear wheels to get the maximum weight in the rear tires. The ideal run is to have your front end about a foot off the ground. That way you know you got your weight right and you're getting maximum amount of traction to your rear wheels. Now, other pullers will pay attention to a good run, and they'll want to know where these guys got their weights. But looks are deceiving. Some of these are dummies.
Now, Rich, what way, shape, and form would you find these dummy weights?
Well, Stan, they look just like a normal weight, but what looks like 100 pounds could only weigh about 5 pounds.
Well, next up, it's Jim Brockman in the Kodiak Dodge, distance to beat, 269.79 feet.
Okay, this is a 604 cubic inch Aries. Now, one thing he did with this vehicle is he's lengthened his frame about 19 inches, and let's see if that's going to help him. He might not have to have too much weight on the front, but it looks like he don't have enough. He's getting up a little too high in the front end there, and that's going to hurt him big time, Stan.
Oh, I think you're right, Rich. He needed to go over 269 to take that lead, and he's way short of it. 257.17 feet, the Kodiak Dodge. Well, let's go down to Mike Goss, who's down at trackside.
Jim well shorted the lead, but you've got another truck back there. What kinds of things do you learn from this first run?
Well, we had the front end just a little bit light. We thought we'd be able to pick up some ground speed coming off the starting line and get a little bit better momentum going, but unfortunately the front end got a little bit too light and it just didn't happen. So we'll see what happens with the rest of the class, and the track may change between now and then.
Well, next it's going to be Stitches also. You see Brad Turner in there in control. He's the son of the owner. Jim Lyons usually drives this truck, Rich.
Yeah, that's right. Lyons usually drives it. He's out with a little bit of an injury this weekend, and that's one thing why Brad is driving this weekend. It's a 557 cubic inch Chevrolet Rodak, 1,400 horsepower. Let's see if Brad can hold on to it and get a good run. This truck usually does.
Uh-oh.
A little bit of problems there. Looks like might have had problems with the kill switch, Stan.
Absolutely. As you can see, stopped at about 135 feet.
Right. He didn't get very far at all. It just seems like there might have been a problem with either a malfunction or the kill switch pulled out. Let's see what happened.
All right, we can go down to Mike Goss trackside, see if he'll have the story.
Bradley, you had some problems up there early. What happened?
Yeah, I was making a good pull, but it just seemed like me and Jim thinks the kill switch got pulled out some way, but they said it didn't now. But the motor cranked right back up, and that's the only thing we can figure out.
Well, Stan, if there was a malfunction with it, it still stands as a legal pull. He went past the 75-foot mark, so that's all he gets.
Well, next up, it's going to be Lige McLean out of DeMossville, Kentucky in Rowdy.
It's a 468 cubic inch Chevrolet, 1,400 horsepower. He's running a turbo 400 transmission. Now, he's one of the only guys that runs this type of transmission in Poland, and let's see if it's going to do it for him. He's got a lot of horsepower. Front end's a little heavy. Right there, it's starting to come up just a little bit. It might do pretty good, Stan.
He's got a long way to go.
He's still going. It's a real good run. Real good.
Good run. He needed to beat 269. No, he's only at 266.14 feet per routing.
A little short. Let's see if we can see what happened. He looks like he had an excellent run from the very beginning. He wasn't going off to the either side. Now, he did have a little smoke coming out of the engine towards the end. Now, I don't know if he had any problems with that or not, because he seemed to run okay.
Well, not a full distance for him, but now it's the professor once again. This time in a little red truck. We're talking about Wayne Roush out of Dublin, Ohio.
Of course, he is the 1988 Puller of the Year. He's running a 541 cubic inch Hemi Chrysler in this truck here. Now, let's see. This is his oldest truck. Now, this is one of his first ones. So this one he's a little bit more familiar with. Let's see if he can do it. He comes off real hard right there. As you can see, at about 75 foot, he just put the hammer down. He's got it wide open. He's just, the front end's up just right. It looks like a pretty good run. A little bit light right there.
Well, it looks like he's gone farther than he did in his yellow Model T. Yes, 267.78 feet, but not quite good enough.
Not quite good enough at all. As towards the end there is where he had his problems. He might have been a little light on the front end, and he loses his leverage there. What happens when the truck is too high in the front end, you lose your leverage pulling that sled.
Well, we're still looking for a full pull tonight here at the Nashville Motor Raceway. And the current distance to beat, 269.79 feet. We'll be back in a moment. Power. There you see John Heilman and Levi Garrett getting towed off the track. Now, moments ago, here's what happened.
Of course, Dan, we'll see right here off the line. He comes off real easy now. He's got a new motor in his truck, and he just knows something's not right from the very beginning. You see a lot of oil on that engine. He's got a lot of smoke. It looks like to me like he blew that engine. Let's go down to Mike to see what did happen.
We put a lot of fuel in it. I think it got a piston. Hope it didn't hurt real bad, but it wasn't good. It's the hope of the summer. It's an awful big motor for us, and definitely wasn't what we wanted. I'm pretty sure it got a piston.
So tough night for John Heilman. And here's the current standings with 2 pullers to go. Art Hathaway holds the lead with the longest pull tonight of 269.79 feet. And coming up next, it's Ray Carpenter in the Sundance Kid out of Bettendorf, Iowa.
Stan, it's a 1988 S10, 649 cubic inch, 2,500 horsepower. Now, this guy, he's got a lot of horsepower. This used to be a different pulling vehicle, but he's done a lot of modifications to it. Let's see if he did the right ones to win this thing tonight. He looks like he's coming off a little bit easy, but there, just like the other guys, he nails it real hard. Oh, Stan, look at that beautiful run. He's got the front end perfect. Stan, look at it. The box is all the way at the top, and he's still pulling another 20 feet or so.
I think we got a new leader. We do. 271.82 feet. It's the Sundance Kid.
Well, Stan, like I said earlier, this could be anybody's pull, and apparently it is. Now, this is a big surprise to me. He's done an excellent run right there.
All right, well, let's go down to Mike Goss, who has Ray Carpenter.
A lot of people might call this a big surprise. You're beating some of the big boys in the modified 2-wheel drive.
Oh, we're really happy. I'll tell you, if it wasn't for people like Bandag and Bill Humphrey and Rick Kepley, my crew chief, Pat Connor, you know, it's the people behind the scenes that makes this thing possible. I just sit in here and flip the switches.
So it's going to be up to Jim Brockman in the final pull. He's driving the Kendall C-Cab.
If there's one person that can do it, he might be able to. Now, this vehicle here is made out of all of aluminum. The year, I'm not sure. It's early 1900s, but let's see what happens. He got a lot of horsepower. Let's see if he's got his weight right on that aluminum body. He looks pretty good coming out of the hole. He's got the front end just right. But look, Stan, he's going way over to the left-hand side. I think he's going to have to hit them right brakes to stay in bounds, and that's going to hurt him.
I don't think he's got the distance to go past Ray Carpenter. He doesn't. 253.53 feet. And just not quite good enough. So our final standings here, it is Ray Carpenter taking the win, 271.82 feet. Let's go down trackside with the winner.
Ray, this is a big story for our Nashville Network fans. You came literally out of nowhere to win this thing. You beat the very best trucks in the country.
Well, it sure wasn't easy. They didn't hand it to us. You know, we run against the toughest iron in the country down here, and we had to wait right. I think maybe we read the track a little better than anybody, and you know, out of all the teams, there's about 75 other people you're trying to outguess here, and we're really happy to win.
Is this the kind of performance you can do on a consistent basis?
Oh, I think so. If you know, in this sport here, you got to have the equipment, you got to have the backup parts to make all these things come together, and
anything happens, motor, whatever, you just take her home and put in another new soldier and keep going, keep marching.
Okay. Now, you bought this truck from the Humphrey brothers, who have the Spike and the Jack Daniels truck. You knew you were getting a pretty good piece of equipment.
Well, they ran this truck, and we had to talk pretty quick to get it from them, and they finally broke down and sold it to us. And they've helped us tremendously.
Well, once again, congratulations to our winner, Ray Carpenter, in the Sundance Kid. For Rich Hooser and Mike Goss, I'm Stan Rhodes. Join us next week for Trucks and Tractor Power on the Nashville Network. So long from Nashville, Tennessee.